everyone, welcome to a training video for editing timesheets. This is going to be a slightly longer video than some of my other quick ones because we're going to go into some pretty good detail on editing timesheets and viewing timesheets and different tips and tricks you can have with timesheets in the system. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I'm going to show you is how to navigate to timesheets in the system. So if you're pretty new to using this, there's plenty different ways to get to an employee's timesheet. I'm going to show you the ways I like to use though to get there. On this top bar, you're going to click on Manage Time. You can then click on Manage Timesheets, and you'll see you have a whole bunch of different options here. The two that I like the most are going to be by pay period and current. I just selected current there. So current timesheets is always going to pull up your current pay period's timesheets. And so no matter what pay period you're in, it's always going to pull the timesheets for that pay period. This is a useful way to just go ahead and get really quickly to your current pay period's timesheets if you want to. Now the other way I like to use is the by pay period option. So I'm going to navigate to that Manage Time, Manage Timesheet, and I'm going to select on by pay period. This gives you pretty much the same view as the current timesheets with a couple of adjustments. The first one is near the top left. I'm kind of highlighting that section here. You can select which pay period you'd like to view. If you click on that drop down, you get current, next, previous, and date. Current is obviously your current pay period. Next is going to be your next pay period. Previous is previous pay period. If you select on date, you'll see over to the right a little bit, it's going to change and give you a date option. This actually allows you to pull up a calendar and select a date, and it will pull up the timesheets that date occurs in. So if I want to select a date in the future, it's going to adjust my timesheets to show me the pay period that date falls in. Now there is another way to move backwards and forwards in time viewing these different timesheets. If you look on the right side, kind of where I'm highlighting, there's two arrows pointing to the left and pointing to the right. Those are going to be for your previous pay period and your next pay period. You can actually just click on those to move you forward and backward in time. So you can see I'm just clicking forward and it's going further forward in time. And I can just click on back and it's going to take me all the way backwards in time as well. To open up a timesheet, there is a View Edit Timesheet over on the far left side. It looks like a little button with a pencil on it. So you can click on there and it will open up that employee's timesheet. Now once you're in the timesheet, there's a couple different tabs in here that you can click on. The Timesheets tab is going to show you all your employees' clock in and clock out times. It's also going to get into what time off and notes and different cost centers that are in there. We'll get more in depth with this in a second. There is an extra pay tab. So if you actually run payroll with us at IdealHR, you can actually enter in extra pay for your employees. So that would be something like a bonus or a cost reimbursement. You can use it for lots of different things. So that's what the extra pay tab is for. There is a Calc Detail tab. So this is going to show you pretty much all the calculations that the timesheet is doing to get you a total for your employee. There's also the Summary by Day tab. So this gives you a good summary of the amount of time the employee works each day and gives you a full total down at the bottom. Now the timesheet I'm showing you is a weekly timesheet. So of course this is only going to show 1 week. Now if your pay period is bi-weekly or semi-monthly, you will see all of those days on the timesheet. I'm going to go ahead and click back on my timesheet tab. Now that we're in the timesheet, let's talk about editing the time entries. So you can see in here it's broken down by different day, and you can see some days are going to have more rows than one. That's going to be because there's a clock in and a clock out entry, and then when you have a break, like this example here that I'm kind of highlighting, that means that they had a lunch. So you can see that they're actually missing a clock in punch, then you have a clock out punch, then you have a clock in punch, and another out punch. To edit time entries is pretty straightforward. So in this case, this person is missing a start time. So let's go ahead and we can just type in 8 a.m. there and we can save the timesheet and it'll resave and recalculate everything and give you a full total for that day. If you need to adjust any entries, so let's say they actually clocked out at 12:15 instead of 12:29, I can go ahead and put in 12:15 there, make sure I put that P in there so that it knows it's for PM, and I can click on Save. Now you'll notice as I'm editing these time entries that it's putting an E next to all of those that I've edited. This is just the way the system shows that the time entries in the timesheet were actually edited by somebody. When there is no E next to it, that means it came from a punch from the employee. So the employee clicked on the clock in button or the clocked out button. Let's take another example here. So on Tuesday the 30th, it looks like my employee forgot to punch in. So I'm going to go ahead and enter in punch at 8 a.m. But it also looks like they forgot to clock for a lunch. So in this case, I'm going to click on the plus sign that's over on the left side. When you hover over it, it'll say add row. So I'll click there, and you can see it adds an additional row for that Tuesday. I'm going to go ahead and highlight the out entry, and I'm going to move it down. It's pretty nifty. All you have to do is highlight it, and you can actually click and drag and move it back and forth. That way you don't have to try to double type it in. And then I'm going to enter in 12 p.m. as a clock out time, and then 1 p.m. as the clock in time. That way the system has a lunch calculated for that employee. Once I'm finished making those edits, I'm going to go ahead and click on that save button, and you'll see it'll make all those adjustments for me. You'll notice that 446 that I moved, it actually didn't put an E next to it because I moved it from one section to another. It's basically the system knowing that that punch has remained intact and it wasn't actually edited by anybody, which is kind of nice. Now let's say your employee forgot to request some time off and you need to manually enter time off for the employee into their timesheet. You can do that pretty easily as well. So let's go ahead and take an example. Let's take Thursday the 1st here. In my raw total column, so you see over here on the right, there's a raw total up there. I'm going to just type in the number of hours I took as time off. And then in my time off column, I'm going to select the type of time off. Now to do that, I'm going to click on the button with the magnifying glass because it's going to give me a full list. So I have two options from holiday or paid time off. So I'm going to go ahead and select paid time off there. And then I can go ahead and click on that save button. And that's going to actually save the time off in the timesheet for the employee. Now, if your employee has time off balances and they have accruals, that will actually automatically update the employee's time off. So there's no need for you to have to go in and adjust their balance or anything. When you're assigning that as time off in the timesheet, the system automatically knows to remove that from the employee's balance. Let's get a little more in-depth here. So if you actually have different cost centers for employees, like they're costing the hours that they're working to different locations or different jobs, you can do that as well. So let's say for some reason an employee needs you to make a manual adjustment to that. You can easily do that. Let's go back up to my Monday the 29th example. So you can see I've got some different cost centers here. So let's say in the morning from that 8 a.m. to 12:15, they are working in that restaurant A location. And then let's say in the afternoon, they switched over to restaurant B. So to select that, I'm going to click on the button with the magnifying glass to get my list, and I can select on restaurant B, and you'll see it changes it in that drop-down menu, and then I can click on that save button. Now if you need to enter a note for an employee, so if you want to make some notes in the timesheet, there's actually a couple notes buttons here that you can use. Over on the very far left, you'll see a notes button that looks like a little tab with the paper turned over and a plus sign. So you can click there and it's going to open up a new window for you to be able to enter notes. So for me to do that, I'm just going to say, this is a note in a timesheet. Employee forgot to clock in at 8 a.m. So I can go ahead and save that. And you'll notice that note icon over on the far left actually changes to have some lines in there. That's a notification letting you know that there's actually a note in the timesheet. So I can click on that again and I can see the note that I entered in just a few seconds earlier. A couple of the things that you can do in this type of timesheet is you can actually change the employee's schedule directly from here. So if you'll notice on the right side, there's a schedule column and it shows the different work schedule for the employee. If I need to make an adjustment for this for them, I can actually click on that schedule itself and it's going to open up a new window that shows the schedule that the employee is assigned to for that day. If I need to make an adjustment, I can click on that drop down and see there are other options here for that schedule. So if I want to change it to 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., I can click on that and then I can click on save and it'll update the timesheet for me. If you click on that and your option is not available for you in this drop down, so let's say you don't want to have it be 7 a.m., 8 a.m. or 9 a.m., you can click on the fixed option and that's going to allow you to manually adjust the from and to time. So let's say it's really 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. You can click on save and you'll see it'll update the employee's schedule for that day. Another thing you'll notice on this timesheet is the exceptions column. This is actually showing some different things that the timesheet is calculating. So like if the employee was tardy or if they left early based on their schedule. Now the exceptions will show on the right side of the timesheet here. But there is also an exceptions tab. So in the top in the middle, I can click on exceptions and it's going to show me every single day on here on what exception actually showed up. And I can actually come in and override this if I'm a manager. So I can click on the drop down for this tardy one. I can click on clear and then click on that save button and you'll see it'll remove that tardy option. Now the main thing you'll see this in use for is if you have something called an auto lunch. We can actually set it up so you can override whether or not the automatic lunch is taken out of the employee's timesheet. Let's talk about some of the other tabs in the timesheet. Our main focus so far has been on this timesheet tab. So let's take a look at that extra pay tab. As I was saying before, you can use the extra pay tab to add in expense reimbursements or you can put in bonuses in there. This tab is really pretty straightforward. You'll see there is a cost center column here, so if you need to cost the dollars that you're adding into this, you can do this here as well. Works just like the time entry portion. You'll click on that magnifying glass to get you a list of options. Select the option that it's for. You can then select the pay category, so in this case I have expense reimbursement selected. And then far over on the right is where you can type in the amount for the expense, so let's just say it was $20. And then I can click on save, and that will save the full extra pay in here for you. Now this will get exported out if we are running payroll for you, so there's no need to send us like a separate email or anything for those. There is a notes section here, so you see there's a notes tab. You can click on that notes button again and say this was for a meal on a trip, and we can click on save and then save the timesheet to save those changes in that tab. Let's take a look at the Calc Detail tab. On this tab you can see totals for the week. So this calc total column is going to show you per time entry what the total is. The weekly column is actually going to show you the total weekly hours, so you can see it starts with that 425 and then it just starts going up in time as you kind of go down the list there. This pay period option does the same thing, it's just for your pay period, so you can see it adds up the time as you go down the column. If you're a bi-weekly pay period, it will actually be different here, so your weekly will show you the weekly total, and then your pay period is going to show you your pay period total going forward. You can also see what the system calculates as time off, so in this case you can see when a lunch has occurred or a break has occurred based on the time in the system. Also when time off is used to like paid time off or a holiday. You can also take a look at the cost centers that are different than the employee's default. So you can see in this case I have it set to say work location for that restaurant option, but that will change based on your company setup. The last tab we're going to take a look at is the Summary by Day tab. This tab is going to give you totals per day based on different pay categories. So you can see I've got regular and it gives me a total for that. And then I've got paid time off and it gives me a total of paid time off. And your calc total column is going to give you your totals for all of those together. Now you'll notice there's an incomplete column here. This is letting me know that there are incomplete time entries on the timesheet. I can just click on that day that's over on the far left. It will take me to my timesheet tab, and so I can see on Wednesday the 31st, I am missing 2 time entries here, so I'm missing a clock in and I'm missing a clock out. Let's go ahead and fix that real quick. I'll do 7 p.m., 5 p.m. I can save that timesheet. When I go back to my summary by day, you can see that incomplete column has gone away. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about some other things that you can see in the timesheet without having to navigate away from it. I'm just going to go ahead and click on that timesheet tab. Up at the top right, you'll see a bunch of different buttons up here. The first one is save. Obviously that's going to save the timesheet, so once you make a change and you click on that save button, it's going to save all those changes in the timesheet for you. If you want to undo any changes that you've made in the timesheet, you can click on that undo button and it'll actually undo any of the changes that you previously made. It's not going to undo all of them, it just kind of works like an undo button in like Word or Excel. It just undoes the last thing that you changed. The next button is Submit for approval. If your employees are submitting their timesheets, they will see this button. They can click on that, so this will actually pull up a message just letting them know that they're submitting that, and they can click on that OK button to submit it to you. The next button is the Approve button. This is if you're approving the timesheet as a manager. Once you're done making all of the edits to the timesheet and you click on that approve button, it will actually lock the timesheet and prevent you from making any additional edits to it. And so make sure you're not approving that timesheet before you're actually ready to finish making any changes on there. The next button is Notes. So if you click on that Notes button, it will actually show you all of the notes that are in the timesheet. This makes it a little bit easier to see what notes are actually in there. So instead of trying to hunt for different looking buttons over on the left side, you can actually just click on that Notes button and it will show you the different notes that are in the timesheet, and it'll also list the date and who created the note so you know where you can look for it. The next button is Docs. This is actually a documents area, so you can upload different documents to the timesheet. A good example of what you can upload into your timesheet would be like a receipt for an expense reimbursement. It works pretty much just like any other upload in a web page. You'll choose the file that you actually want to upload, then you can select the document type. So in this case, it would be like an expense or receipt document type. You can type in a description for the document, and then you can select whether or not the employee should be able to view that document in their timesheet. You can click on that upload button and it'll upload it into the timesheet for you. Now, once the document has been uploaded, you'll actually see it in this All Timesheet Documents list, which you can view by clicking on that Docs button. And if you want to download it, you can click on that Download button, and it'll actually download a copy of that document to your computer. Before I get into the Utilities button, I want to just talk about the Info button real quick. When you click on that Info button, it just gives you some general information about the timesheet, letting you know when it was created, what time zone it's in, what the employee's default cost centers are, so what their work location or job or cost centers are. So it just gives you some general information about that timesheet. Now the Utilities button, when you click on that, it's going to open up a new menu of different options in the timesheet. The first one is time off counts. So when you click on that, it will actually show you the time off balance that the employee has. So that's a good way to check that balance without having it go into the employee's profile. Another option is points. So if you're using attendance points in the system, you can click on that points button and you can see the employee's total for how many points they have accrued. You can also click on the Schedule or Edit Schedule button. It will actually take you to a different screen to allow you to edit the employee's schedule. If you click on that Schedule button, you can kind of see a list with bars on here what their scheduled time is. If you click on Next and Previous, actually change the different dates, which is kind of nice. That Edit Schedule button is where it's taking you to that different screen where you can see the employee's schedule. Again, there's your Notes option, so this works the same way as that Notes button. It's just going to open up a window with the different notes in the timesheet. The next one is Documents. Again, it's the same as that Docs button. It's going to open up a window for you so you can see all the documents that have been uploaded to the timesheet. The next one is Timesheet Changes. This actually is the audit trail for the timesheet. So if you want to see who or what adjustments were made at the timesheet, that Timesheet Changes option is going to give you all the different edits that have been made to the timesheet over time. There's a lot of information in this audit trail, but it's a good way for you to see who's actually editing the timesheet and how many edits were made to it. To get back to the timesheet from this screen, you'll just click on that back button that's up in the top left, and it's going to take us right back to our timesheet. The next option is the print option. So clicking on there is going to give you a bunch of different options on how to print out the timesheet. Once you select all your different checkboxes on here that you want to print out, you can click on the print preview or the print button. It's going to show you a view of what the timesheet will look like if you print it out on a piece of paper. So if you're looking to actually print out timesheets, that's a good way for you to do that. The last option on here is employee information. If you click on that, it's just going to take you to the employee's profile. To get back to your timesheet, you can click on the back button that's up in the top left. That pretty much gives you a really good overview of everything on the timesheet. So let's go into some tips and tricks for viewing timesheets and editing timesheets. So there's a really cool way that you can view multiple timesheets at a time. So I'm going to click on Manage Time, Manage Timesheets, and by pay period so that I can get to my different timesheets. If I want to view multiple timesheets without having to go into a timesheet, come back out, and then go into another timesheet, I can click on the timesheets I want to view by clicking on these checkboxes on the far left. I can then click on that View Timesheets button that's up in the top right. And then you'll see up at the top, you can see it's got the showing 1 of 3. I can click on the left and right arrows here, and that's going to take me to my next timesheet that I selected. And I can click on it again to go to the third timesheet that I selected. So I can click these back and forth to go backwards and forwards in the different timesheets that I've selected. To get back to your list of timesheets from here, you can just click on the back button in the top left, and it's going to take you back to your different timesheets. Another way you can view multiple timesheets is something called the split view. Not too many people use this, but if you have a larger computer screen with a higher resolution, this is actually really handy. To get into split view, click on the 3 buttons up in the top right, and then you're going to click on split view. It might take a second to load here. But what will happen is you'll see over on the left side, I've got a list of my employees here, and then I can click on the timesheet button, the edit timesheet button. And when I click on that, it's going to open up the timesheet over on the right side. So I can actually come in and see my list of employees, and then it can also see their timesheet on the right side at the same time. So if I remove some columns, I can actually click on my different employees on the left side, and you can see it changes to the employees that I've selected timesheet on the right side. So it's kind of handy to have that. It's a good way to be able to do multiple timesheets at a single time. To get back to your standard view after you click on that split view, on the left side you're going to click on that 3 ellipsis button there, the 3 dots, and you'll just click on regular view, and then it'll take you back to the normal view of those timesheets. Another thing you can do is actually mass approve the timesheet. So if you want to approve all of your timesheets at once, you can click on the checkbox that's up in the very top left here. So you see when I click on that, it selects all of my timesheets on my page. I can then click on my approve button, and this way it'll actually allow me to approve all of those timesheets at one time, as opposed to going into each timesheet separately and approving it. The only time you would really want to do this is when you know that your timesheets are good and you don't have any errors in there. Otherwise, you might be approving something that needed editing. So just be careful when you're using that mass approve option. The last thing I'm going to show you is how to print out multiple timesheets at a single time. So you know, when we were in the timesheet itself, we went up to our utilities button and we selected print so we could print out our timesheet. We can actually do that for multiple timesheets at the same time. So in my list of timesheets, I just want to make sure I've got my full list here. So I'm going to click on that checkbox to select all of my timesheets. Then up at the top right, I'm going to click on those 3 dots again and select print as the option. And it's going to give me that same window of what all I can actually print out on the timesheet. The main thing you want to take away from this is at the very bottom, there's a checkbox that says print 1 timesheet per page. I'm highlighting it here. You want to make sure you have that option checked off. That way the system doesn't try to print out more than 1 timesheet per piece of paper. So when I click on that print button, it's going to give me an option to actually print it out. This is what it'll look like. So you can see I've got a different timesheet per page on here. So this is a really great way to print out multiple timesheets at the same time if you're having to print out timesheets for whatever reason. This way you don't have to go into a single timesheet by itself, print it out, and continue onward that way. That's all I have to show you today. I know this is a little bit longer than some of our other videos, but it gives you a really good overview on getting into timesheets, editing them, and some tips and tricks and everything with timesheets themselves. Now, if you do have any questions about timesheets, feel free to give us a call here at Untitled Chapter. We're more than happy to help. We'll talk to you later. Thanks.